Picture this. You wake up one morning, a familiar weight pressing against your chest. You can't name it, but you feel it. That eerie sensation, like déjà vu, but worse. A sinking realization that you've been here before. The same mistakes, the same regrets, the same cycle. Maybe it's another toxic relationship, another opportunity wasted, another promise to yourself broken. You swear each time will be different, that this time you'll change, but you don't. And deep down, you already know that. Why? Why do you keep walking into the same fire, knowing exactly how it burns? Why do you trust the same types of people who have hurt you before? Why do you self-sabotage just as you're on the verge of something good? Why do you keep making the same mistakes again and again, despite your best intentions? Albert Einstein once said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." And yet, here you are. This isn't just your story, it's the human story. Look around. People stay in cycles of addiction, abuse, procrastination, self-doubt, and fear. Nations repeat the same wars. Governments repeat the same lies. Civilizations collapse under the same arrogance. History itself is a graveyard of unlearned lessons. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." But what if the problem runs even deeper? What if you're not truly in control of your decisions? What if something unseen is pulling the strings? The scariest part? You don't even realize it's happening. The mistakes you make aren't random. They're scripted, etched into your psyche like a well-worn groove in a record, playing the same song on repeat. You think you're making choices, but in reality, you're playing out patterns, old wounds, unconscious programming, societal conditioning. In the movie The Matrix, Morpheus tells Neo, "You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind." That splinter is the invisible force controlling your actions. But what is it? And more importantly, can you break free? The answer lies in the depths of psychology, philosophy, and the unseen mechanisms of your mind. To understand why you keep making the same mistakes, we must first uncover what's really controlling you. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. If you want to understand why you keep making the same mistakes, you must first confront a truth that most people never dare to face. You are not who you think you are. Your mind is a battlefield, but the war is invisible. Forces you cannot see, your past, your subconscious programming, your deepest fears are shaping your decisions before you even realize you've made them. You believe you have free will, but in reality, most of your choices are echoes of old wounds and childhood conditioning. Carl Jung called this the shadow self, the hidden part of you, buried beneath layers of repression, fear, and forgotten memories. He warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. How many of your choices, your relationships, your habits, your failures are truly yours? How many are just repetitions of old pain? Imagine a child who grows up in a home where love is conditional. They learn that in order to be accepted, they must sacrifice their own desires, silence their voice, and become what others expect. Years later, as an adult, they struggle with boundaries. They attract toxic partners, remain stuck in jobs they hate, and apologize for existing. They think it's just bad luck. It isn't. It's programming. Now imagine another child, constantly criticized, never feeling good enough. They develop an internal voice that whispers, "You're a failure. You'll never be enough." As an adult, they unconsciously sabotage every success, procrastinating, quitting too soon, avoiding challenges, because their mind is wired to confirm what they've always believed: I am not enough. This is why self-awareness alone is not enough. You can know your patterns, but that won't stop them from repeating, because knowing is not the same as unlearning. Nietzsche proposed a haunting thought experiment called eternal recurrence. Imagine you had to live this exact life, every choice, every mistake, on an infinite loop, no changes, no escape. Would you scream in horror, or would you finally wake up? Nietzsche's point was this: if you live unconsciously, you will repeat the same mistakes over and over until you learn, until you take responsibility for your own mind. But most people never do. They blame the world, fate, or bad luck, never realizing that the real enemy is within. As Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, once wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Science agrees. Neuroscientists have discovered that your brain makes decisions before you are consciously aware of them. In a famous experiment, researchers found that brain activity predicts your choices milliseconds before you consciously decide. In other words, your mind decides first. Your consciousness catches up later, creating the illusion that you were in control the whole time. So, if most of your choices are happening before you're aware of them, who or what is really in control? Your past, your fears, your programming? And unless you do something radical to break the cycle, you will keep making the same mistakes. But here's the real horror. Even when you see the trap, it doesn't mean you know how to escape it. So how do you break free? Most people don't realize they're trapped until it's too late. By the time they wake up to their self-destructive patterns, they've already spent years, sometimes decades, chasing the same illusions, fighting the same battles, and falling into the same emotional traps. And the worst part? They blame everything but the real cause. They blame their bad luck, their parents, society, the economy, other people. They tell themselves stories to justify their failures. This is just who I am. Things never work out for me. Maybe I'm just not meant to be happy. They don't see the real problem. It's not the world that's against them. It's not some grand cosmic conspiracy. It's their own mind, running on autopilot. Every time you repeat an old mistake, your brain strengthens the neural pathways that created it. Like carving a trail through a forest, the more you walk the same path, the deeper it becomes. And soon, it becomes effortless. Your mind defaults to the mistake because it's familiar, because it's comfortable, because deep down it feels safer than the unknown. A toxic relationship might hurt, but leaving it is terrifying. Failing at your dreams might be painful, but the idea of success and its responsibilities is paralyzing. Your self-sabotage might frustrate you, but deep down, it protects you from facing the fear of change. This is why people stay in the same patterns for years, why some never escape at all. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, in Thinking Fast and Slow, explains how your brain prefers cognitive ease. It resists change, even when change is necessary. It takes less effort to repeat the past than to build a new future. And this doesn't just apply to individuals. Think about history. How many times have we seen the same mistakes repeated on a massive scale? Governments rise and fall due to the same corruption and arrogance. Societies collapse because they ignore the warnings of the past. Revolutions overthrow tyranny only to become tyrannical themselves. Or look at modern culture. People worship convenience and pleasure, blind to how it weakens them. Social media traps millions in cycles of comparison, validation seeking, and addiction. Entire industries profit from keeping people weak, distracted, and dependent. Aldous Huxley warned of this in Brave New World. Unlike Orwell, who predicted society would be oppressed by force, Huxley feared we'd be controlled by pleasure, by entertainment so addictive that people would choose their own enslavement. And isn't that what we see today? A society where people keep making the same mistakes, not because they're forced to, but because they're conditioned to. So, what happens if you never escape the cycle? You live the same year over and over again, calling it a life. You waste time waiting for a change that never comes. You wake up one day, realizing you spent your entire existence running in circles. And that's when the final, most terrifying realization hits you. It was never fate. It was never the world. It was always you. But here's the thing. If the cycle is in your mind, that means the key to breaking free is there too. What if there was a way to finally stop repeating the past? If you've made it this far, then something inside you is already rebelling. Somewhere deep in your mind, a part of you has always known that you're trapped in cycles not of your choosing, that your mistakes are not accidents, but echoes of something deeper, that you're being controlled, not by the world, not by fate, but by your own unconscious mind. And now, for the first time, you see the bars of the cage. But seeing the trap is not the same as escaping it. So how do you break free? Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And this is why most people never escape. They refuse to look in the mirror. They cling to their illusions, the comforting lies that make them feel safe. But rebellion begins with truth. If you want to stop making the same mistakes, you must do something most people never dare to do. Confront your shadow. That means looking at the parts of yourself you've been running from, the insecurities you pretend don't exist, the fears that dictate your decisions, the past wounds that still control you. It's painful. It's terrifying. And that's exactly why it works. Because once you bring the unconscious into the light, it loses its power over you. Nietzsche put it this way: one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos is necessary. Pain is necessary. But only if you face it head on. Your mind is full of scripts you didn't write. From childhood, society, family, and culture, you've absorbed beliefs without questioning them. And those beliefs shape your actions, even when they lead to destruction. So the next step is to start dismantling the illusions. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself that might be a lie? Who benefits from me staying weak, fearful, or stuck? What truths have I never questioned? What if everything I assumed about success, happiness, or failure is wrong? Once you start questioning, you realize something terrifying. Most of what you believe isn't yours. And once you strip away the illusions, you gain something priceless: the ability to choose your own path. If your life feels like a loop, then breaking free requires a radical shift. This means doing the opposite of what your patterns dictate. If you always run from discomfort, lean into it. If you always procrastinate, force yourself to act immediately. If you attract toxic relationships, cut them off without looking back. If you always seek external validation, practice indifference. This is what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragility, the ability to grow stronger by facing resistance. Unlike fragile people who break under pressure, anti-fragile people become sharper, wiser, and more powerful by embracing discomfort. But most people never do this, because change feels like death. In The Dark Knight Rises, Bruce Wayne is trapped in a deep underground prison. Every time he tries to escape, he climbs with a rope, but fails. Then an old prisoner tells him something profound. You do not fear death. You think this makes you strong. It makes you weak. How can you move faster than possible, fight longer than possible, without the most powerful impulse of the spirit, the fear of death? Make the climb, as the child did, without the rope. And when Bruce climbs without the rope, with nothing to catch him, he finally escapes. That's the key. You can't change if you're holding on to safety. You can't evolve if you're clinging to your past self. You can't break free unless you burn the bridge back to who you were. That's why every great transformation feels like death. Because it is. The old you has to die. And if you can let go of that past self, the version of you that kept repeating the same mistakes, you can finally become something new. There is a reason most people stay trapped. Change demands sacrifice. It requires a price: comfort, security, the familiar. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Because once you do, something incredible happens. You stop reacting. You start choosing. You stop being a puppet of your past. You become the author of your future. As Viktor Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that's the final secret. Mistakes are only mistakes if they control you. But if you use them, if you learn, adapt, and break the cycle, they become the foundation of your transformation. So now, you have a choice. You can keep repeating the same mistakes, or you can burn the script, break the loop, and finally take control. What will you choose? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast canyon. On one side is everything you've ever known, your patterns, your mistakes, your past self. On the other side is the person you could become, the life you could have. And between the two, a void. Most people will stand at this edge forever. They will rationalize, hesitate, and find reasons why now isn't the right time. They will tell themselves they need more certainty, more security, more signs from the universe. But the truth is brutal. There is no bridge. The only way forward is to jump. This is the part no one tells you about real transformation. It doesn't come from slow, careful steps. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It happens in a single decision, when you finally let go of who you were and leap into the unknown. You've spent years thinking you were doomed to repeat your mistakes. That something outside of you, fate, trauma, personality, genetics, was holding you back. But the ultimate truth is this: the cage was never real. The only thing keeping you trapped was your belief that you were trapped. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Everything that controlled you, your patterns, your self-sabotage, your past, was only ever as strong as the power you gave it. The moment you refuse to be a slave to your old self, it loses control over you. Because here's what no one tells you. Fear is just a feeling. It doesn't mean you can't act. Mistakes don't define you. Only your response to them does. Growth isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. In the movie Fight Club, there's a moment where Tyler Durden puts a gun to a man's head and tells him he will either change his life or die. The man runs, terrified, and Durden turns to his companion and says, "Tomorrow will be the most beautiful day of Raymond K. Hessel's life. His breakfast will taste better than any meal you and I have ever had." Why? Because for the first time, Raymond K. Hessel saw the truth. Life is urgent. Change is urgent. But most people don't act until the gun is to their head. So ask yourself, what if you stopped waiting? What if you stopped making excuses? What if today, right now, was the moment you finally stopped making the same mistakes? Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, because the moment you make that decision, something shifts. The past no longer defines you. The mistakes no longer control you. The cycle is broken, not by luck, not by time, but by you. So, who will you choose to become? You've reached the end of this journey, but this is where most people fail. They read, they feel inspired, and then they do nothing. They fall back into the same loops thinking, "I'll change later." There is no later. There is only now. So I challenge you, before you close this, before you move on with your life, make one real, irreversible decision. Something that forces you out of the cycle. Something that makes the old you impossible to return to. Burn the bridge, cut the rope, make the climb without safety. And when you do, when you finally choose to stop making the same mistakes, you will realize something most people never do. You were never meant to repeat the past. You were meant to break it. And now, you are free. The choice is yours.